Well, a very good morning from Phuket. Today is Friday the 15th of May, and on this video we're going to be taking a look at some of the new measures that have now been brought into place by the Thai government to allow businesses to start to reopen. Of course, over the last fortnight, we've seen the start of restrictions being eased here in Thailand, meaning that businesses now can start and operate. However, they do have to follow certain guidelines. So that's what we're going to be looking at today, and I will be back shortly after this.
Right.
So what are these new measures that businesses now need to implement? Well, there is a baseline for the measures, which include things like social distancing, health and safety, cleaning and sterilisation. So these are the things that we're going to look at, and we're going to be looking at what we've had to do in our business type. Of course, there is a bit of flexibility within the baseline because, for example, all our staff and our customers have to wear masks at all times. However, of course, in a business such as a restaurant, that's not going to be practical for the customers to wear masks. So, of course, that business type needs to take slightly different measures to protect themselves and the customers. These are things we're going to be looking at in the course of the next coming videos, other businesses and what they're doing. But honestly, at the moment, there aren't that many businesses open that I can go and film. I was out looking around yesterday, trying to have a look around and see whether I can give some good examples of what businesses are putting in place, such as restaurants. But unfortunately, there aren't that many opened up at the moment, and I'm guessing that that's due to the restrictions, of course. Should businesses decide not to follow the government guidelines, then they're leaving themselves open to fines, also being closed down. Now, there are inspections and spot checks by the local government here in Phuket. We have seen it on the news, so there are government officials going around, in our case checking like salons and making sure that they're following the government guidelines. So these are the things I'm going to run through, show you what the sort of baseline is. When a customer arrives, what we have to do, what the customer has to do, once they're inside the business, again, what is expected from the customer, what we have to do to provide for the customer also. So this is going to give you an idea of what we're up against and other businesses are going to be up against in the coming months. Of course, as hopefully tourism returns at some point in the future, these measures are going to be around for some time, I guess, until there is a vaccine or treatment for the virus. So a lot of these measures are going to stay in place. So you may see these measures in place if you visit Thailand or indeed Phuket. And as I say, over the course of the next coming videos, I'm going to show you the different measures that are having to be put in place by different businesses. But on today's video, we're going to look at the measures that we're currently having to do to keep within the government guidelines. Now, when a customer first arrives at the business, we have to make sure there are clear signs on the windows so the customer knows what we expect the customer to do before entering the business. This includes washing their hands or cleaning their hands. So we have to provide a hand gel, a sterilising gel for them to do this, which is positioned outside. Once they've done that, Nat will greet the customer at the door and take the customer's temperature. Hopefully the temperature is fine. If it is high, then we are not allowed to serve that customer and we have to turn them away. Hopefully the temperature is fine, they can enter the business. Of course, there is a sign telling the customer that they need to keep the face mask on. Nat will also have to wear her own personal PPE. Now, once the customer enters into the salon, it's customary in Thailand for people not to wear shoes. We've decided to supply the customers with flip-flops rather than the customers just walking in bare feet, because it means Nat would need to sterilise after every single customer of the floor, and that's a lot of work. So if they're wearing flip-flops, then Nat just needs to sterilise the flip-flops once the customer has left, which is a little bit easier than sterilising the whole floor. There is a lot of sterilisation involved, as I say. There are some baselines. We have social distancing. So let's start at the beginning with the social social distancing, because this is going to be one of the biggest issues for a lot of people, for business owners, etc. They've got to allow social distancing. Now, normally here within our salon, we have one chair, as you can see, Nat is cleaning there, and we also normally have a chair here. So this area I've measured is just about 1.5 metres apart, which is what the government have stated. As you can see, we have to supply signs inside telling the customer exactly what we have to do. Now, there is some discrepancy on the distancing within the salons, because this sign actually states 1 metre, but I've also read somewhere where it's 1.5. But to be on the safe side, we've sort of allowed a lot more than that, because luckily in our business we have a little bit of extra space. And because we have this space, it has allowed us to be able to put our chairs further apart, giving a lot more space than we really need to be honest. We could have 2 customers sitting, as I've showed, one here and one over there, and that would be roughly 1.5 metres apart. However, we've decided to move this chair and put it across to here. So now we have a space between customers of 3 metres. However, Nat wants to really deal with one customer at a time, because the government have said part of the restrictions, we can't have customers waiting, so she can only deal with one customer at a time. It's not going to be practical to have 2 customers in the salon at the moment, so we don't really need the spacing. We can just get away with one chair, but we do have the room if we need it, and we've got 3 metres between the customers. So this allows us to operate with no problems and no infringements on the government guidelines. Now, of course, many businesses are going to struggle with this, because social distancing is a big issue, especially here in Thailand, because of course you have a lot of small restaurants. There's a lot of small businesses that operate here, and space and social distancing is going to be a very difficult thing for a lot of these businesses to be able to cope with. Every customer has to have fresh towels, of course, and covering. The actual covering that we put around the customer, we can only use it one time and then it has to be washed. So these are the sort of restrictions we're up against. Going back to the health and safety, cleaning and sterilisation is something that the government are taking very seriously, which means we have to clean and sterilise after every single customer, as I've mentioned. So anywhere the customer's been, the chairs where they've been sitting, or the bed where they have their hair shampooed, has to be sterilised and cleaned after every single customer. So throughout the day, Nat's constantly cleaning, making sure everything's clean, sterilised, no possible chance of any germs. Even the equipment that she uses, she has to sterilise the brushes, the scissors, again after every single customer, morning and night. So lots and lots of cleaning involved now in the businesses. Now, once Nat's finished dealing with the customer and the customer's left the business premises, Nat has to then clean the door handles, sterilise them, and we've got a sterilising chemical in the bottle. Now that is the sterilising liquid that Nat's used, that we've bought, which I think you can clearly see on there. Hang on, Nat, just because it'll spray onto the camera. Let me just try and get that to focus in there. It does state it's specifically for the Corona-19 virus. So we're taking it quite seriously. Hopefully all businesses are going to do the same, but of course I can't speak for every business. In the coming months I'm going to be looking at all different businesses. Now, one of the business types that are going to be opening more in the next few days is shopping malls. Now, shopping malls, from what I've read, are going to have all the same sort of restrictions as we've got, but they've got to implement them in a different way. So what you're going to find is shopping malls normally have maybe 3 or 4 different entrances. Those may be closed, and there may be only one entrance that you can use for entering the shopping mall and one exit for exiting the shopping mall. And the reason for this is all the customers have to be screened, they all have to have the temperatures checked, they all have to be wearing masks inside the shopping mall with no exceptions, and the shopping malls have got to have staff on hand to make sure that people walking around the shopping mall are complying with the rules and regulations. So I think this is where you're going to find shopping malls just using one entrance and one exit, so they can monitor people, in the shops, etc. There's going to be a limit to the amount of people that can enter certain shops, depending on the size, of course. Larger shops are going to allow more people in, smaller shops are going to have tighter restrictions. But again, same basic principle, social distancing, so people have got to stay apart from each other. And then, of course, you've got the cleaning. The shopping malls are responsible for cleaning constantly because of the volume of people. They've got to have a team of staff just cleaning and sanitising all the public areas. Of course, the shops are responsible for their own cleaning. Again, the busier the shops, the more cleaning that's got to go on. So basically, we have to clean after every single customer. So that's for us. So of course, if that's the principle across the board, the more customers, the more cleaning. Shopping malls are very busy, or tend to have a lot more customer traffic, so they're going to need a team on hand. But of course, other businesses are going to be in different positions. With all these extra overheads, is it going to be feasible with the amount of people that are going out and about at the moment to be able to make a profit? So this is why I feel some of the businesses at the moment are remaining closed, because to be able to implement all these measures is going to cost money, and maybe the businesses just can't simply afford it. So of course the overheads are going to be too high for hotels to open at the moment, bearing in mind they're not going to have many customers. So this is going to be interesting to see how long they stay closed before they start to open. Are they going to wait until the borders open up? Be interesting to see that. They are doing spot checks, the local government. We have seen it on the media. We ourselves haven't had a spot check, but of course if you do get a spot check and you're not complying with the rules and regulations, you're leaving yourself open to possibly being fined, possibly closed. So this is why we're taking it quite serious. Of course, we don't want to get fines. We also want to take as much care as we can for our customers and ourselves. Now, the other thing I forgot to mention is we also have to keep a record of all the customers as well in a book, which we've got on the desk over there, Nat's desk. She has to ask the customers to fill in the name and address and phone number. Of course, if there's any issues and problems and the government need to get hold of people that have come through the salon, they can see all the names and addresses and they can trace people. So again, this is something that people are having to implement in the business in different ways. Well, what I thought we'd do now is jump across to Phuket Town to visit another salon. Now, the lady owner that owns this particular salon is a very good friend of Nat's. She is also Nat's teacher, who taught Nat to be a hairdresser, hairstylist, with whichever terminology you wish to use. So we're going to take a look at this salon. Now, the lady's called Meow. I'm going to take Ploy with me because Meow doesn't speak a lot of English, so Ploy's going to be my interpreter, and we're just going to take a look at her salon and how she's implemented some of these measures. Of course, they might be slightly different to our measures that we've implemented. As I've mentioned, the baseline is all the same for all the businesses to implement. It just depends on the business and how they wish to implement them, as long as they meet the government's requirements. Well, we've just arrived down at Wat Dida Salon, which is situated just on the edge of Phuket Town. Actually, it's just down from Nakar Market. One of the entrances to Nakar Market is just behind me. So, as you can see, just at the top of the road there, that is one of the entrances to Nakar Market. Nakar Market currently closed at the moment. Even though markets are allowed to open by the government in Bangkok, the local government here in Phuket has requested that some of these markets remain closed until they've implemented the measures that we're talking about today. Each business type is going to find it difficult to implement certain measures. So we're going to take a look at Meow Salon, Meow being the owner of this particular salon, and look at the way she's implemented the measures over here in her salon to comply with the government's regulations and current regulations. Why I'm talking about this, today is actually the day where the government are looking at easing and opening up the next stage of the easing of restrictions. That's currently going on at the moment on the TV. Now, salon owners such as myself, Nat and Meow are hoping that the government are going to ease some of the restrictions on salons. Even though we're allowed to open, currently we are not allowed to offer all the services that a salon would normally do, such as treatments, chemical treatments such as colouring of the hair straightening, also steam treatments. We're not allowed to offer those, manicure or pedicures. So we're hoping after today we're going to be able to offer those services again to our customers. Let's now go and see what Meow actually does at her salon. As I've mentioned, the baseline, it's all the same, the baseline is, but the way different businesses implement the measures may vary slightly as long as they meet the rules and regulations of the government and what they've set down. Okay, for demonstration purposes, we're going to use Ploy as the customer. So she's the customer, and this is Meow, of course. As you can see, personal protection equipment. So she's doing the same as what we do in our salon, offering customers the flip-flops. Now she's taking Ploy's temperature. She's using a different way of taking the measurement. Okay, 35.3. Okay. And then Meow expects the customer then to sign the book so she can keep a track of all the customers that have come through the salon on a particular day, just in case one of the customers does have a problem, and then the government can see all the customers that she may have come into contact with during that day or that's been in the salon. So of course Meow sterilising the equipment the same as what we have to do. So Ploy would fill in a name, all the details such as an address and phone number, etc. So next she would need to sterilise her hands. Meow there showing the customer exactly what she needs to do. Okay, well I've just been talking to Meow via Ploy because she's been translating. Meow doesn't speak really good English, so it can get a little bit complicated if I haven't got Nat with me or Ploy with me to translate. But I've just been asking Meow how she's dealing with the customers as regards numbers. She's got quite a large salon here, as you can see, so there's plenty of space, so she could easily have 2 or maybe 3 customers. But of course the government here has stated that at the moment there's no waiting, so customers shouldn't be in the space for any longer than they need to be. Some of the regulations mean that Meow can only work on a customer for a maximum of up to 1 hour. Any longer than that, and then that becomes a problem. As I've just mentioned outside, that the salons, even though we are allowed to now operate and open, some of the services are being restricted that we can offer to the customers, such as treatments and coloured hair, straight hair, perming hair, because these can take a lot longer than 1 hour to complete, and the government do not want people in a confined space for any longer than they need to be. So I've asked Meow about number wise, and she's doing exactly what we are, just 1 customer at a time rather than having somebody waiting. Meow normally does have staff, but she hasn't got staff on at the moment. I don't know, I haven't spoke to her about the staffing issue. Also, you might notice, just going to spin the camera around here, she's also got her doors wide open. We do tend to open the salon doors because the government are concerned about air movement and airflow through the business. What they're saying is businesses need to allow as much airflow through them as they can. So this is one of the reasons why the doors open here, not using the air conditioning so much. Numbers have been quite low for the last 2 weeks. In fact, on quite a few days we've reported no cases here in Phuket, or just very, very low numbers, single digits in most cases. So the government now is moving forward on the second stage, and of course all over Thailand we are seeing quite low recorded numbers. So the government now wants to move forward and ease more restrictions, allowing more and more business types to open up. Hopefully we're going to see an easing on the restrictions in our business type, so that we can now offer the customer pedicures, manicures, colouring of their steam treatments. A little bit puzzled why the government won't allow salons to do steam treatments, because when you're using very hot steam, I would have thought that would have killed the virus. So really, if you're steaming somebody's hair, that is the best thing you could do, because that's going to kill any viruses that may be on the air. I mean, I'm no expert on it, but that's just my thinking. But at the moment, we're not allowed to do that. But we're hoping after today, some of these restrictions are going to be eased so that salons can get back to doing what they normally do. Now, as you can see me out here in all her PPE, taking it quite seriously. She's actually wearing a lot more than Nat is as regards the coverings. She looks more like somebody that's just about to do an operation, a doctor in a surgery rather than a hair salon. But this is the sort of things that the government are expecting now salon owners to do and take very seriously if they want to open the business. This is the sort of lengths that we're having to go to keep the government happy. Well, I hope you found today's video informative and helpful, and a bit of an insight to the sort of restrictions and measures that companies and businesses are going to now have to implement over the next coming weeks and months, and possibly even up to a year. So of course, at the moment there's no tourists coming to Thailand, but over the next 6 to 8 months, hopefully we're going to see the return of tourists. You may well see some of these measures being implemented in the businesses here when you're over here on holiday, because these measures really are here to stay for the foreseeable future, or at least until we have a vaccine and treatments for the virus. I'm sure the government are going to keep these sort of restrictions and measures in place until things start to get a lot better. So this has been more of an insight into the things that businesses have got to really do in the next few weeks to allow themselves to be able to open and remain open and meet the government's expectations as regards health and safety, social distancing, and obviously cleaning and sanitizing the business to make it safe not only for themselves but indeed their customers. Again, as I've said, over the coming weeks I'm going to cover different businesses, not just salons. I'm going to be looking at restaurants, I'm going to be looking at shops and shopping malls, all the different types of businesses. At the moment, a lot of them are still closed, if I'm really honest with you, so it's making it very difficult for me to cover these types of businesses. Even the restaurants that are open are tending to offer takeaway services rather than dine-in services, as I saw a lot of this yesterday, a lot of evidence of restaurants that I would normally visit to dine in are either closed or offering just takeaway services, because again, it's going to be easier for the business. It's less expensive than having all the dine-in. Some businesses are going to struggle with social distancing, as I've mentioned. Fortunately, my business, Meow's business, quite large inside, so we can get round that without too much problems. But of course, small restaurants that have got a lot of tables, they've got to think about taking tables away to make space in between. Restaurants are going to have differences when it comes to obviously people being inside the restaurant, because there's going to be no wearing of face masks for the customers, because they can't eat when they're dining if they've got a face mask on. So it's going to be very interesting to see how these businesses cope with all these measures. But for now, I hope you've enjoyed today's video. Of course, I'd like to thank everybody for all the comments on all my previous videos. If you do have a comment, then please do leave the comments in the comments section down below. It's always interesting to read your comments, get back to the relevant ones, of course. Do bear with me, because I'm getting very busy with comments and emails and people asking me different questions about different things. So I do try to do my best to keep up with it. But for now, thanks for watching, and until next time, I will catch you on the next one.